go.
My name is Kim Donaldson.
My name is Kim Donaldson.
My name is Kim Donaldson.
Whose line is it?
Are you Kim Donaldson?
My name is Timothy Donaldson.
So who's
Then
the real
please
Kim
stand
Donaldson?
up.
Oh wait, I forgot to stand.
Okay, let me find these. Let's start with Mike. Share a story when you found yourself having to trust God in a greater level.
Wow. The first one that comes to mind is being in New Zealand, not knowing. She was there. That's why she did that. Being in New Zealand, I was running a school of evangelism, and the school of evangelism was actually in Kauai, but we went to New Zealand, and while I was there, I got canned, and so here I am, thousands of miles from home, and I had to trust God. Sometimes, well, in my case, I find that when I'm asking for something specific, I just get a few words. If I'm not in a stressful moment, I can actually take the time to seek His heart out and find out something much more. But I just search, and I'm like, emotional, and I'm off by myself. Kim thinks I went and jumped off a cliff or something. But I just found a little place where I could just sit for a moment and just kind of lay down on this bench. There's new moon, there was no light out, and this is my first night there, so I didn't kind of even know where I was. But I just asked God. It just is, what do I do? I'm just looking for anything. Give me a word. Give me something. And He says, you're reacting. Stop reacting and start acting. And I've used that throughout my life now, where it's, you're reacting to a circumstance, you're reacting to a word you got, you're reacting to this, and you're just not staying who you are. And, I was having this conversation earlier, and what the funny thing is, and then I'll finish. The funny thing is that people that place you in this pressure cooker, it seems, okay, kind of expect you to squirm in this pressure cooker they've placed you in. But when you say, I'm going to start acting like a child of God, in faith, and I just start going my way, all of a sudden they're running after you. But wait, right? You're supposed to be over here, what are you doing? No, what are you doing over there? And that's what happened. We just started driving around New Zealand and saw the wonderful, this is a wonderful place, beautiful, and very diverse, much like California. But acting, not reacting. And I just found myself having to trust God.
Very good. That was a good answer. Good job.
Good answer, good answer.
I'm going to pass it to Donna. Same question. Share a story when you found yourself having to trust God on a greater level.
Okay. Well, that's a daily occurrence, it seems, in my life. However, there are some standout moments. And one of them was in 2008 when everybody that was in business was suffering from a huge downturn, and we were all scrambling to backpedal and get ourselves in order. And I was reacting. It's the worst thing you can do. I was reacting to worldly circumstances. And I remember feeling like I wanted to crawl onto Ernie's chest and grab him and go, "Do you realize what is going on here?" Because I'm paying for all the bills for the shop and all the payroll, and then hoping I have enough money to pay bills at home. And it was eating away at me so horribly, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I had a hot tub sitting up on the hill, and that was my prayer closet. And I had gone out and was sitting in the tub up to my neck, kind of going, "God, I don't understand. What the heck? What's going on? What do I do?" Whine, 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 reactionary. And then it was an aha moment for me. I got up out of the hot tub and I addressed the enemy, and I drew a wet toe line on the concrete. And I said, "You want a piece of me? You have to go through Jesus, because Jesus owns everything that I have. It's all his. And if you want it, you're going to have to go through him. So I'm not even in this fight. I trust God." And it broke. Everything that I was experiencing broke. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't upset that Ernie couldn't see what I could see happening, even though what I saw was unreal. And I was no longer motivated by the circumstances. I was no longer reacting, but I was resting in the fullness of who God was for me, and the battle began with, of course, Jesus in control and not me. And it went well. And we lasted for another 15 years or something like that in business after already another 15 years prior. So, yeah.
Go ahead and pass it to Jamie. Jamie, same question.
Trusting was the time.
Share a story when you found yourself having to trust God on a greater level.
Okay. So you need to know that when I think of the word faith, I think of the word trust. They're kind of synonymous. Yeah. And in fact, trust actually helps me understand faith better, because I feel like trust is a little bit more action-oriented in my mind, the way I think of it. But this situation, I'll explain, was a few years back when I was in Reading. Okay, so I'm a member of the I Was Once Broken Club. Anybody else part of that club? Okay, so I got to experience what that club was like when I was up in Reading. So marriage number 2 had just dissolved before my very eyes, that I never expected to happen. I was in a different place. So I went through rejection, abandonment, fear. But really, that's a lie. It wasn't fear, it was terror. I was terrorized to be with myself. I didn't have the capability to think straight. I was broken. My brain didn't work. My life wasn't working. My thinking wasn't clear. And my feelings were just absolutely, like an overwhelming river that I couldn't control. So I really can't say that, looking back, I don't think I had the trust to walk through that. But here's what happened. God gave me his trust. Just like it says in the gifts. I was reading it this week in the Corinthians, chapter 12, and he says he gives you the gift of tongues, he gives you the gift of faith.
Yeah.
It's from him. So I feel during that time, he gave me that faith just to be in the muck. But it was his faith that got me through it.
Amen, brother.
Same question. You want me to read again? Just so you know. Share a story when you found yourself having to trust God on a greater level.
Okay. Which is a good one? Okay. I was working I was vice president over operations in a bank, and then the bank got sold, and I went with the first time, but then it got sold again 2 years later. And I knew I wasn't going to stay that time because I was way too high on the food chain. And so I got laid off, and I felt like God told me not to go back to work. But synonymous with that, at the exact same time, my son got in a horrible motorcycle accident. And so I have this going, and I have, is my son going to live? All at the same time. And in our household, because of the kind of job I had, it was all our health insurance and, you know, all that stuff was involved in that job. And, but yet at the same time, we have our son in the hospital, not knowing if he's going to walk again or if he's going to make it through any of the surgeries, and just trusting God with the very promise that he gave me when I carried him. And I had to hang on to that promise, that because when I carried him, the Lord told me he was going to be a son and he was going to be a mighty man of God. Now, mind you, I had already gone through this once and had a conversation, because he almost died at birth, had a conversation with the Lord. And here we are again, having another conversation with the Lord about that. And the good news is, I think for me, in my younger years in the Lord, I would have not handled it well at all. I think it would have been too much pressure at one time and flipped a switch or something. But in that, the timing was perfect, because I was able to help with the kids, my grandkids. They have 3 children, and it worked out well. I mean, actually, it was a blessing to be able to be available where I would not have been available had I been working. But, you know, it went on. He got better, and then years later, things got really slim. And I would say it probably made him trust a lot more as well. Like, is she really hear what she heard? And then, but what it did for me, because I used to, in my brain, try to fix things, or I would project that he was going to get money on this job, so everything was going to be okay. So the Lord was training me that he's going to take care of all that, and I don't need to think about it. And that's hard for someone that balances to the penny in their checkbook, because I'm trained that way. But really, it's been, I have had no pressure. I don't feel it. It's, I know God's going to provide in it. It was such a transition for me, which I think agree with Jamie about the faith thing. It affects not only that incident, but it affects how I trust God, period. It just changed the whole thing. When I was younger, it would have been a mess, absolute mess.
Why don't you keep that? What is your most memorable encounter with God?
I know, just one.
We'll be here all night.
I'll share the first one, because that's the one that changed everything. I think some of you already know about this one, but Mike and I, when we were dating, I started dating him at 16. And then he called me one day and he said, "I love you more than I love anybody, but I need more," or something. I don't remember. Not out of my mouth before I could think about it. Yes, and I said, "Jesus." I don't know, just came out of my mouth. So this was a thing, you know, okay, as soon as we hang up, that's it, right? Yeah, as soon as we hang up, we're going to fall, you know, it's one of these kind of funny things. So finally we hung up. Well, Mike became what I thought was a Jesus freak, because he got radically saved, and I kind of wasn't. So anyways, long story short, I'm down in Carlsbad. And
Moving along fast.
and Mike had gotten a ticket, taken me back from something, I don't remember. But anyways, on his way back, he went to go visit my mom. It was a setup. My mom's all, "You have to go see Kim." And mind you, we weren't dating at this time. "You have to go see Kim." He's like, no, you really have to go see Kim. So anyways, he comes to see me, and he visits me at the restaurant I'm working at, and I'm like, what the heck? Because I was Carlsbad, and he was in Yorba Linda, so big difference. And I'm walking on, we go walking, and he just does not stop talking about God. God, 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 God. And so I'm being convicted, 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 convicted. So we go to my mom's condo. We go upstairs. Mike sits on the bed, and I barely get down kneeling before him before the power of God came on me so radically. I was lifted into the heavens sitting with Jesus, speaking in tongues at 100 miles an hour in front of him. And I didn't even know tongues existed or any of that. It was just radical encounter. And it was radical for me and radical for him because, I mean, I'm going 100 miles an hour in his face at the same time. He doesn't know what's going on with me, or I'm seeing it from up above and looking at us down. So that was probably my first radical encounter.
Go ahead. Mike, what was yours?
So I get to finish the story? No.
Sure. That's kind of where we're going with that.
There I was. No. Yeah, but what's important about this story is that she had accepted Jesus at what, 14 was it? 13?
Yeah, 14, something like that.
Something like that.
I had cast him at like 15.
But, her walk was because she was dating me. And I wasn't saved. So, the walk wasn't, you couldn't tell she was walking with God. Let's just say it like that. And it was my fault. I'll take the blame. And, but it wasn't until she had an encounter that changed everything. That's why we really encourage encounters all year long. You're going to hear this a bunch of times. My encounter happened, I'll say my first one, after we did that whole, okay, we're going to follow Jesus as soon as I hang up the phone. This is it, And you're like, okay, this is back in the day when you had something you could hold in your hand like this. So it was like this. But I remember, I put the phone down and I took a deep breath and I says, that's it. That was my moment of deciding to follow Jesus. Within the next week or two, because I don't remember, I got stuck on the freeway, Newport Freeway, coming home. And you used to call it the Newport parking lot because it always happened. And so here I was, and I just, almost put it in park, waiting, because that's just what you do. All of a sudden, it was as if a presence had come into my van and just sat next to me and started sharing all the times that he was with me in the hardest parts of my life. And my realization at that point was like, well, you were the one I've always wanted. Do you remember when you felt peace after you thought you were going to, your dad beat you so hard that you may not wake up the next morning, I was, emotional about it, I'm sure. But there were just times of almost got hit by a car, one time, and there's a sweet smell, aroma. And he just reminded me over and over, and all these points, all these low points in my life when he was with me already. I went, well, you're the one I want. And that was that encounter. I don't know what people were thinking, because I was bawling so hard because of the freedom, snot's pouring out of my nose.
From the parking lot.
In the middle of the freeway. And I felt so purified at that moment that I didn't even want to wipe my nose. You know what I mean? I just I don't want to touch and be defiled. It was a weird feeling. But the purity was just there. And that was it for me. That was my number one encounter.
When was yours, Donna?
Oh, okay.
Your most rememberable encounter with God?
And I'm still longing for this to occur more in my life. I have encounters with God all the time, but this one was memorable in a way that, and most of you have heard it, so if you've heard it,
You're hearing it again.
pretend that you haven't heard it yet. I am up at Vacaville listening to a worship band that is playing for Graham Cook. And in the middle of worshiping, I'm looking, dawns on me, another friend that I had brought wasn't with us. Pat was my friend, Pat Johnstone Griffith, was right to the right of me, and we were worshiping, and it was a really fast-paced song, and we were dancing, and then I thought, where's Diane? And the Holy Spirit said, Donna, focus on Jesus. And I went, oh, okay. So I was having to go back, like, just so excited. And then all of a sudden, I wasn't there. I wasn't there. I don't know how God did this, but immediately I was, I believe, in a heavenly place, and I am running, and I'm looking up at the sky, and it's so incredibly blue. It's bluer than blue. And I'm running through wheat fields, and the wheat is waving, you know, in a gentle breeze. And as I'm running, I'm going through the wheat with my hands going, with my fingers as you know, over the heads of the wheat. And I'm laughing. And I look over at my hands to see the wheat, and actually my hands had become like a scythe or a sickle and was cutting the heads of the wheat off, and the wheat was flying in the air behind me. And I remember saying to the Lord, this is labor? Oh my gosh, this is the most fun. People think when you said the laborers are few, like, we had to get out there and we had to work. And it's like, this is really awesome. If they understood this, it wouldn't be so hard. But they're kind of freaked out. And I could tell you that I ran through that field for what seemed like hours. And I never got tired. And it was, I could smell smells I'd never smelled. Everything was different. It was a term that I've coined from a movie. It was much more muchier. It was amazing. And then, right in the middle of it all, I'm on a surfboard. I'm on a short board, but I'm walking it like a long board. So I'm running up, I'm running back, and the spray is hitting me in the face. I could smell. It was, to this day, I can still feel the power of the surf. I was like on, 40-foot wave, you know. Yeah, I've never done that. But I could feel the power, and it was endless. So a lot of cutbacks, but right up and slam right back down and into the water. I decked my head into the water, and oh my God, it was amazing, absolutely amazing to feel the power of God. I didn't see him, but I knew I was surfing with him, and I was talking to him the whole time. This is the most amazing experience, God. And then I did something really stupid. I said, has everybody left the worship floor? And I'm out here doing like cowabunga by myself. You know, like, wow! And immediately, and I was there for hours there too. Immediately I was gone, and Pat was still next to me, and we're still in the same song. No lost time. I don't know how he does it, but I just know that he does do it. And it's available for anybody that has a hankering for that kind of encounter. And I've had some similar, but that one is
most
like,
memorable.
whoa! Yeah.
All right, Jamie, same question. Most memorable encounter with God.
Okay. Wasn't the worship amazing tonight?
Yes.
I mean, when in the middle of the worship, I was considering, this panel thing, and I felt like God was saying, these encounters, what are you guys thinking when you're hearing these stories right now? Because these stories are to provoke all of us to a deeper love, And God was showing me some of these encounter things and how there was a lot more to them than I remembered, in the past. This is going to be a Jerusalem encounter, and there's like 2 or 3 of them that happen there, but this one you might relate to or like. So we stayed on the Mount of Olives in the prayer house there, and it's really, if you've been there, it's not really a mountain, it's more like a hill, but it's a steep hill. If you walk up, it's cobblestone streets, and about 2/3 of the way up the hill is the Garden of Gethsemane. And it's a wrought iron gated place, and they don't charge you to go there, and you can just go and wander the olive tree groves, But in one part of the garden, there's a church. And in the church, there's the front of the church, there's like a gated, like a parish would have those kind of low fences type things, but with nice wood and everything. And inside that gated square was a rock. And tradition holds that it's the rock that Jesus went to the night before he was crucified and prayed. And that's the place where he prayed, my father, if you can take this cup from me, would you take it from me? And they have it, like I say, portioned off like that. But on some days, they would open a little gate and they would let the people visiting go up and be by the rock. And I happened to be there on a day when it was open. So I went and I kneeled before the rock. And there was a definite sense of presence there. Don't really know how to explain it, but you guys have all known the presence of God. So I just stayed in that presence. But like you, I was a little bit mindful that there was a crowd of other people that wanted their turn at the rock. So maybe after 4 minutes or so, I gently pulled myself away from the rock. And I heard, "Are you leaving already? Can't you stay a little longer?"
Oh my goodness.
I came back, of course. What a mystery. Because is this not the same rock where he asked Peter and James if they could pray with him for 1 hour? And it was not at all a condemnation. It was just an expression of his deep love for me. Yeah. That he would just love to be able to be with me for a little while longer. So that's our sweet Jesus.
Well, since you have the mic, Donna.
It's like hot potato.
Hot potato. Okay, well, let's just do this. I'll give the question, and whoever wants to answer it first can answer it first. Okay, so when it comes to offense, how did you react in the past, and how do you react now when someone is being offensive to you?
Well, in the past, I had 2 ways. If I knew that the person could beat me, literally, I acquiesced. I didn't want to get beat. If I knew that I had greater power than somebody, I asserted my power with my mouth. I didn't go around hitting people. But I didn't want to get pushed around. And so if somebody claimed something, and I would get right back in their face. And this went on for a long time. Well, that was up until I became a Christian. When I became a Christian, oh my gosh, I still acted the same way. Because there was certain things he was working on, that wasn't one. Until one day, I was asked to pray for the women's group at church. And now, women were not my best friends. Women were scary, and women were backstabbing, and I had lots of opinions about women that none of them were good. And I just kind of sat there with God, like, and he goes, Donna, because he does talk to me, Donna, you're reactionary. I don't want you to be reactionary anymore. I want you to be revelatory. I want you to be on the new side of who I'm making in you. So now I had to partner, because could I do that? No. I had way too much background with friends stabbing me in the back. I mean, you'd have to know my history. I'm not making this up, but there were women that really sabotaged a lot of things. And I could not do this on my own. I had to partner with God. And anything that you deem of yourself, like what you said, I don't even know how to do this. How do I love people that haven't been loving to me? So you have to partner with God to get you through this experience. It's kind of like he walks with you, and then he puts training wheels on you and kind of pushes you out there, and then you begin to walk. If I'm caught off guard and it's been a bad day, I could probably like go, what are you talking about? You know, kind of get some reaction from me. But for the most part, I say to myself, I don't want to get in the dirt with that person. I just don't want to. It is so unbecoming of who I really am. And so I would say I'm really harsh on myself when it comes to, wow, you reacted. Because I don't want to be that way. I want to be the new creation fully. And that's where I am.
All right, Jamie, same question.
This is offenses. This is offenses.
Yeah, how did you deal with them in the past, and how do you deal with them now that you're more mature?
Okay. I was a professional offense collector, so it didn't matter what environment I was in or what kind of people I was with. I perceived offenses very easily. And, you know, like some people, you know, the belly buttons are the inside ones or the outer, the inner outie. So I have that theory that's how people's temperaments and personalities can be, you know. Some guys are like, no, in your face, you know, and other people are like, oh, don't hurt me, you know. And I was more of the pouter. I would pout, and I would go home and I would complain to God about it, don't you know? And I would hold these silent offenses. And to be honest, a lot of them I collected were from church people, you know, or even church leaders, you know. And somehow I expected these guys to fix me. You know, they should know they're church people, you know. And so I had this expectation offset. So anyway, now, praise the Lord, I pray a lot. And I just rest in Jesus' love. And I learned the lesson for me is if I feel something like that or sense it, go to Jesus. Let's have a talk.
All right.
I would say that until I heard John Paul Jackson speak on rejection, that I didn't know that I was stuck in a cycle of rejection. When you feel rejected, first thing you do is you get depressed. And then the depression, to get out of that depression, you had to do what he called a presumptuous act. So you do something to make yourself noticed. You do something to make yourself feel better because you didn't want to feel like that. So you did something else, you know? But God's like, what are you doing? And he can't bless you in it because you initiated it. You're not partnering with him with anything. So he says, you get a little spank on the bottom. And I say that because what happens is he chastises those he loves, right? Because he loves us. But what happens? Oh, man, I got rejected again. So what do I got to do? Oh, I'm getting depressed, so I got to do something. So it's round and round and round, and it just doesn't stop. And when I heard him talk about it, I had no idea. And to me, it was like, oh. So I stopped, you just got to cut it off. You find yourself in depression, cut it off. You find yourself trying to do something presumptuous, cut it off. And anyway, that's how I deal with it now. Before I was, the champion rejectioner. I didn't think anybody was more rejected than I ever was. I had my badge, and you can carry it proudly. And I understand that whole thing about, if you hang out with church people, God's going to grow you up in the church. You're going to get hurt to get there.
Yeah.
But if you're not in the church, you can get that same character outside.
Yep.
You're hanging out with people, and you got to say, I'm hanging out with God. It doesn't matter what people think. Anyway, that's how I did it.
Okay. I think my deal with offense was tell as many people as you can that you got offended because you need to join me in my club. And then, or someone else would tell you they got offended and you join their club. I'll be offended with you. And so we had a gathering of offended people. And, you were thinking, we got to really pray. So you go tell this person, and then you tell this person, and you tell this person, and you wonder why there's splits in churches because an offended person told someone they were offended, and everybody took on the offense. And for me, the Lord really started talking to me about how he sees people. And he started letting me see into people's hearts. And a lot of what I started seeing is people will say things because the enemy drops something and they spit it out of their mouth before they have a chance to think about it because the enemy wants to use it to derail you. And he started letting me see that. And so I began just forgiving people quickly, like forgiving them for what they said, forgiving them because I know they probably didn't really mean it. And if they did really mean it, then there's a conversation that needs to be had. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. So I think as my maturity has come on, I find that I forgive really easy, only because of him giving me the ability to see into people's hearts and know that they truly don't want to offend you. And people that walk in rejection, if they perceive they're going to be rejected, they reject you first.
Absolutely.
So lots of times they just do it because they think they're going to be rejected, so they reject you, and it stirs an offense that's not even really an offense. So I think part of it is just taking your time to see where things are coming from, or is there something in me that's triggering something that I would even be getting offended? Because, and if there is, then that needs to get healed.
Right.
So there's that.
Well, I don't want that, but
Sorry.
you can hold on to that. I find also what helped me was to realize that hurt people hurt people, and to separate the sin from the man.
Yeah.
And forgiving quickly is probably one of the best ways to not be offended. Because, we're all going to walk in some type of hurt. We're all going to say hurtful things. Nobody's perfect. And so it's better to forgive and release rather than to hold on and be angry and let it manifest in your body, because unforgiveness and those kinds of rejection and all those offenses that we carry absolutely manifest in your body through joint pain, all kinds of different things. So think about that next time your knees hurt. No, just kidding.
Who did?
Oh, I wasn't towards anybody. Don't take offense. I was just kidding. I was just kidding. Okay, I know, right? Why do they make me MC? I don't know. Okay. See, they're doing it. Okay, so
Last question.
last question. How do you determine if a thought is from God or a vain imagination?
Woot, woot. Okay.
That coin?
No, okay. We get thoughts all the time, but there's thoughts that will come in. And how I know for myself is if the thought starts getting carried away and it's all about me, or I'm already assuming a situation's going to happen the way it's going to happen, I'm perceiving what everybody's going to say, I'm pretty sure I know what's going to go on, it's a vain imagination. If it comes in and the Lord starts speaking to me and it's Him giving me direction for something, or if it's turning my eyes towards Him for something, or if He's taking me into a vision or a prophetic revelation, then I know it's Him. And it's always different. Whenever God is speaking, it's about Him and it's about what He wants to partner with. The other thoughts are usually about me or about a situation I may be uncomfortable going into, so I've already perceived the whole thing, what it's going to happen, and that's just not God. So that's how I've determined what is Him and what have my imagination's taken me off into.
Mike, same question.
Do you have anything else?
I know, it's not.
For me, it's just hearing his voice, you know, and how it sounds. And the more you hear his voice, the more you recognize, you know, the whole sheep hear my voice and know me. And I found that takes time. It's hard to know right off the bat, this is God, this is not God, for me. You know, I've had some times when I really needed to hear God's voice, and I'd be praying. Oh, I just need to hear your voice. Okay, I'm just going to be quiet right now and listen, and I want you to say the answer. Is it yes or no? Yeah. And I want him to say yes, but I hear no. Satan, I just bind you right now. Because you don't want to hear the answer. This is the answer you want. And after doing that for 7 days, okay, I got it. And it wasn't hard to make the decision. I had heard it so many times. And that was just one word. You know, like I told you that story when I was going too fast down the highway and the Lord just gently spoke to me and said, "You think we can keep it under 70 today?" And I mean, like, it was so much love and compassion and care for me. I went, wow. and the other part of that was the fact that he said, "Can we?" Which was just, for days I was wrecked. Partnering with God. Okay, keep it under 70. Right. You know? Yeah. It's a good thing, but anyway, it's just something that I've developed over the years, I think. And vain imaginations, that's probably the best description would be, you know, who does it benefit?
Yeah.
So if you humble yourself out, you usually find there's more to it. Just keep going. You'll find the right answer.
Ditto and ditto.
Jamie.
Do I have a ditto from you? I'm a thinker, and I think thoughts, even when I should be thinking sleep. It's like my brain is always just filled with good ideas. Good ideas. Not necessarily God ideas.
Yeah.
They're good ideas. They aren't, you know, they're always helpful, but they're not necessarily from God. And so vain imagination, just by the very words that it's using, vain, self, imaginations, oh, I can do all things in my strength. That's kind of a vain imagination, is when you believe that you are the answer to whatever the situation might be, or that God is going to use you because you are so clever, and that you can right this situation, or you can create this, and it involves me. Everything centers around, I can do it. And the thing I have been learning over, I don't know how many years, but truly partnering with God is so, yeah, it's easier, less lumps. You get less lumps through life. But it's so reaffirming. And when it's not a vain imagination, it's because God is getting the glory. God is being recognized, magnified, lifted up. Nobody's looking at me because I wasn't, I maybe prayed it through, or I said, hey, Jamie, have you thought? It's not up to me to be the Holy Spirit. Oh, that's been a hard lesson for me. Not being my husband's Holy Spirit. Just saying to you spouses. Yeah, it is. Yeah, especially when you have grown up believing that, being put in the situation that you've got to fix your life that's spinning out of control, you become a fixer. How do I stop this? How do I do this? How do I get it to go the right direction? Anyway, I've learned that when you partner with God, it's all about God getting the glory. And you can imagine all the rest of the stuff, because it's God's stuff.
How can you tell the difference between a God thought and a vain imagination?
Okay, I'm glad I was last because I really learned something from everybody. I really did. I mean, because the vain thing, like you said, has to do with self, right?
Yeah.
So
We all kind of fall in that sometimes.
yeah. So there's this saying I heard a long time ago that came up in my mind when I was listening to everybody, and it's like a cliche, like how does God answer prayer? And one answer is go, the other answer is no, and the other answer is slow. And so I think when Kim was talking about this idea of not only in this topic, but the offenses we all kind of touched on, the benefit of going slow really helps me a lot. And I didn't learn that lesson easy, and I still don't have it figured out 100%. In fact, I'll give you an unholy answer to how I do the vain imagination, as I complain to my wife. But I make it sound real spiritual. I mean, hey, honey, there's this situation I've been thinking, I mean, she's been through this, man. But here's the thing. This is true also, is that as the months and years, go on, I've learned to pose my situation so that it's not so much about me. And I say, hey, I got this situation. I was thinking about this, and I noticed that, and could you pray with me about that, or I just want to share so you know. So it's kind of like this idea, right? It's all about surrender, isn't it, guys? Yeah. That's what it feels like to me. All these things, we come back to that place. So, thanks, Danelle.
Yeah. Do you find that a lot of times that if it's a God idea, it gets confirmed in other places?
Oh, for me personally, I would say yes.
Yeah.
And that's the benefit, by the way, for me of going slow.
Yeah.
Because I'm like you. I'm a thinker. I'm gonna go. Let's go. But and I'll go first, and we'll create it, and then we got to go back and fix it.
Yeah. I do some of the things. Done.